Sales on Demand Show, episode 30.
Learn how to create, sustain, and scale up your print-on-demand business with the latest tips, guides, and strategies to help you start selling and making money today. Welcome to the Sales on Demand Show. And here's your host, Adam Schneider.
For he's a jolly good fellow. For he's a jolly good fellow. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sales on Demand Show. This is episode 30. Today, we're going to be talking about building a brand. More specifically, we're going to be talking about Incorporation. But before I do that, let's talk about some of the fun things that are happening this summer. So for me, I'm getting back into my routine, which is to say that I'm launching new listings. I'm adding those listings to the platforms, which is what I've always been telling people to do, and I have sort of been a little bit lax on that lately. And I realize that I'm leaving money on the table because there's stuff trending that I'm not taking advantage on. I mean, there's always stuff trending, but things that I know about that I can make money from that's trending, and I'm not taking advantage of this. One of the things that I did when I first started selling was I was looking for things that were trending to build listings on, and I happened to make some listings on a particular thing that was happening, the Eclipse. There was a solar eclipse. So I made some products and launched them on Amazon and Etsy about the solar eclipse, commemorating it. And people were buying those. And I was very shocked because I was a brand new seller and I didn't think that I would be able to get sales for something like that, but I did. And it was only a temporary trend, of course, but since then I've realized that trends can be very profitable as long as you get in there in time. So anyway, that's what I'm getting back into. I'm also working on the Facebook page. I don't have a cover photo yet, so oh well. I don't really care about photos and stuff. I care about content. So I keep adding every episode to the Facebook page. People keep liking it. I've been getting a lot of responses from it, and pretty happy with that. Everything is in stock on Amazon. I've got probably about 1,500 units in stock now on Amazon, which is about maybe a quarter of what I'd like going into Christmas, maybe a fifth. I want to have more like 10,000 units in stock because I think this is going to be a very good Christmas, and I need to get prepped for that. Part of that is when something comes back in stock, if it's been out of stock, sometimes you need to juice the sales up a bit. So I'm running paid ads on Amazon to try to get those things to start ranking again. And of course, it's pretty slow right now because it's the end of July. And there's not really any special events that people are buying coffee mugs for. So that's just the way it is. Sometimes things are slow and sometimes they're insanely busy. So trends to watch for: customization, still super duper hot. Highly recommend that you create some customized products, particularly on Etsy. And, the way to do that is you just basically have to make each product individually, but you can really capture a lot of extra sales from customization. The summer is slowing down a bit, so back to school will be a thing now. And don't think that back to school just means the kids going back to school. Like, everybody's going back to school. And think about strange and unusual back to school things. Don't just copy the things that everyone else is doing. Think about, adults going back to school, unusual things to commemorate, maybe even older people going back to school, like 80-year-olds, 70-year-olds going back to school. Try to think of things that no one else is thinking of. So here are some things, if you're a new seller, these are some things to avoid. And I keep seeing people doing this, and so I keep talking about it. And I'll stop talking about it when I stop hearing about it, basically. So the first thing I always tell people to just don't bother doing is optimizing listings. So this is very tempting on Etsy particularly. People are looking at their listings and they're like, man, well, there's people favoriting these and there's people visiting, but nobody's buying it. So should I add more pictures? Should I work on my keywords? And, if you have something that could sell and it's sold a few times and you want to optimize that, I mean, go for it. Add a few more keywords. But if you've got things that are not selling and haven't sold and nobody's visiting, delete them. On Etsy, you can delete them. On Amazon, I just leave them up and move on to the next thing. If nobody buys it, nobody wants it. And I'm sorry to tell you so bluntly, but that's the way it is. You can't, putting lipstick on a pig isn't the way to make sales here. I mean, you got to make the listings that people want, not the ones that you want. So adding pictures to existing listings, in my opinion, has never been a productive thing to do. Adding really fancy mock-ups where the mug is or the t-shirt is on an attractive-looking model or something like that, I wouldn't even bother. You can use all the time that you're spending to do that to make 5 new products. So just don't waste your time with that. Also, worrying about your current sales velocity. It is the middle of summer right now. If you're making any sales at all, that's good. I'm making a lower than, well, I would say average. There's no average, but, during the average non-summer months, I have a sales velocity that I expect, and right now everything's tiny bit below that. I'm not even slightly concerned about that. I'm still making sales. Things that have sold are continuing to sell. They're just selling slower. Although sometimes they're selling faster, which is really weird. I'll talk about that another day. And the last thing I will tell you to avoid, and this one's hard because this is a personal attack on you, is the hijackers and copycats. So many new sellers, the first thing they do on Amazon and Etsy is they go on the Amazon.com and they search for their mug or their t-shirt or whatever it is they're selling. And they'll notice sometimes, particularly after you've made a few sales, they'll start to see that someone has copied their product. And they get upset and they're like, oh, I need to take this seller down. Well, I can tell you from personal experience that those sellers, they are scammers or they're just hijackers. There's a difference between those two things, and maybe someday I'll talk about that difference. But they go up and down all the time. Every time one goes down, 2 more come back. There's absolutely no way for us as sellers to fight that. So I don't even bother. What I do is I just keep creating products, and when they start selling really well, I send them for fulfillment by Amazon, and that pretty much takes care of that problem. So this episode is going to be a little bit more advanced, but if you're a new seller and you're just starting, please don't think that, oh, I don't need to listen to this or I shouldn't listen to this, because what I'm doing is I'm trying to build vision in your mind. A lot of people get into this sort of business and they think of this as being a hobby where you're just sort of looking for $50 a month extra or $100 a month extra, and they have really low expectations for what they can do. Well, I've never been a halfway kind of guy. I've never been the kind of person that goes halfway on anything. So when I do something, I go all in. And when I first started doing this, I had high expectations, and my first few years of sales didn't meet my expectations, but that's pretty normal. What this kind of business is, this is not a regular income kind of business. If you want a regular income, then you need a job. A job is going to give you regular, expected, reliable income. It's not a lot of income, and you got to trade your time for all of the money that you get. But it is reliable, and a lot of people would benefit from an extra job or a part-time job. And last week, I talked about a couple whales. I guess we're doing Moby Dick this week. No, I talked about a couple ways to make money, trading your time for money, but doing it from home. Hopefully, anybody out there who's worried about cash flow situation, hopefully you got something out of that. Didn't hear a lot of feedback on that one yet, but maybe I'll hear some in weeks to come. But this kind of building a brand thing is all about getting your It's about getting your business from one sale to $1 million in sales. Typically, in my opinion, I would say that $1 million in sales is the mark of a brand. And I know a few people who are doing $1 million in sales, and there's some interesting problems that come up when you get to a higher level of sales. And these problems are things that you can deal with ahead of time instead of waiting till you get there to worry about it. And I've seen people who are doing really, really well, and they're struggling, not with the, money-making side of things, but just being overwhelmed and not knowing how to structure their business to make it the most efficient for them. So if I were to go back to the very beginning, I would say building a brand has 5 steps. And I'm going to tell you what those 5 steps are right now. All right, so step 1 is get access to the platforms. Open up an Amazon seller account, open up an Etsy account, launch some designs, and get some sales. Many of you listening to me right now, you guys are on step 1. Maybe you're not even at step 1. You haven't had a few sales yet. You will get there. One guy on Facebook the other day, he's like, I've got 4 listings and no sales. And I was like, okay, get to 400 listings and you'll start to see some movement on there. So today, after I'm done this podcast, I'm going to be creating some designs and launching them. And I'm going to be doing that every single day. I'm planning on doing 2 or 3 a day. That's about as much time as I've got. And I'm going to keep building on the success that I've already got. So number 2, build on that success. Send in any of the best sellers for FBA and start accumulating some reviews on Etsy. Once you get your first review on Etsy, it lends a bit of authority to your store where people know, okay, this isn't, some fly-by-night operation. It's not a huge deal. You'll probably still get lots of sales if you have no reviews, but you have a good product. Reviews do one thing and one thing only. They do not increase your ranking, either on Etsy or on Amazon. That's a big mistake that people make. Reviews do not make you rank higher. What reviews do is they provide social proof that your products are good, and they help you refine your products and maybe discover new ideas. And it also increases what they call the conversion rate. So when people see a product or a brand with lots of reviews, they're more likely to buy the product from that brand. It's not a huge difference. If they like the product, they'll buy the product. But if there's 2 similar products, they're probably a little bit more likely to buy it from the one that has lots of reviews. Although, if both of them have, if one has 1,000 reviews and the other one has 500, it's probably not going to be a huge difference, but it just helps. All right, so step 3, after you're building on your success, is you start creating a team and building a process to scale up. And this is what I was talking about probably 15 episodes ago with Bank, whose last name I can still not pronounce, but he has mastered this, and he keeps doing it with new sales platforms, and I can't even keep up with it. I got to sit down with this guy again and figure out what he's doing right now, because he has scaled so far beyond what I'm doing right now that it's just insane. So creating a team means that you hire people to create designs for you, and you hire someone to upload them, or you upload them yourself. And you have a process where you target a certain number of new products every month or every week, and you launch them. And you just keep doing that and keep doing that. So part of this building a process is you make yourself a website. So I have a website with most of my products on it. Maybe not most of them. A few of them. And you create a corporation, and you consider trademark protection to fight hijackers. Now that, on Amazon, that's a 9-month process. So it's a long one. It's probably going to take you the better part of a year to do that. Then you get banking and legal details sorted out. So this actually creates an actual business for you. And this is the step that I am currently on right now. I've created the corporation. I'm looking at trademark protection. I've got the website. And I'm in the process of getting some banking and legal details sorted out. I'm not working very hard on it because because I'm kind of enjoying my summer, but I am working on it slowly. So, step 4, scale up. I want to get to $1 million in sales per year. It probably will take me 2 years from this point to get there, but I'm going to get there. It's not a matter of being lucky, guys. I know what I need to do to get there, and it's just a matter of making it happen. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. When you are a new seller and you're looking at the process, you think to yourself, man, I hope I'm lucky enough to get there. But as a relatively experienced seller right now, I can see that there's certain logical steps to get to $1 million in sales per year. And if I follow those steps, it might take me a year, it might take me 2 or 3 years, but I will get there. So, step 5 is, of course, you either sell the business or you continue. And selling, it may sound like quitting, but that's not really what it is, because selling is just cashing in on all the work that you've done and reaping the profits. There's nothing to say that you can't sell and start a new business. And many entrepreneurs do this. There are people out there whose entire business model is just starting companies and selling them. And whoever buys them is the person who knows how to build a company and scale it to, $1 million in sales. So selling a company is kind of an interesting question. I'll talk about that in a few minutes here, but I wanted to talk about the benefits of a corporation versus just having an individual, like a sole proprietorship. I'm not sure what they call it in the US. I feel like it's the same thing. I am Canadian, so if some of the terminology seems a little bit off, then please understand that this is going to be different in every single country. But the basic theory of it is still the same. In every country that I'm aware of where there's any kind of government or legal system, there is always 2 statuses for a business. There's sole proprietorship, where you are the business, and there's no legal status apart from the fact that you're making money and you have to pay taxes on it. Sometimes, like here in Canada, you can get a business name, you can register that business name, you can get a sales tax number, and it sort of gives your business a quasi-legal status as a business. And then when you file your business taxes, you can make all the same deductions that you would if you had a corporation, but you're just making them for yourself. So that's kind of a quasi-corporation without the corporation status. So if you're going to go to the bank and ask them for you can actually get a business bank account without having a corporation. And I would actually recommend doing that, because separating your business finances from your personal finances is a huge step here. So the benefits of a corporation versus sole proprietorship, where everything is kind of all blended together, is number 1, it gives you legal status and credibility. So all of this sort of leads towards the idea of selling your business. You can't really sell a business where it's a sole proprietorship. Most people aren't going to pay any money for something that is literally you. It's kind of like, if you had a window cleaning business, and I'm talking from personal experience here. I had a window cleaning business, but it was just me going and cleaning people's windows. So if I wanted to sell that business, I could maybe train somebody to do it and be like, okay, now the business is yours. And I would literally just hand them the squeegee bucket and be like, okay, well, that's yours now. And he would hand me a $100 bill, and that would be it. There's really nothing to sell if you don't have a corporation. But if you have a corporation, you got a team, and you've got a process, plus inventory that's already selling. Those things lend a ton of credibility for banks that you might want to get lending from. And it also helps you separate the business from yourself so that the business can grow the business can grow and increase its profits without creating a huge tax burden for you. So this is what I'm looking at this year, because I've said this before. I want to reach my $200,000 in sales this Christmas. Now just imagine at 30% profit how much extra money that's going to be. And I have to pay taxes on that at my personal rate. So my personal rate would probably be about 25%, whereas the small business tax rate is something like, I don't even know, 5%, 10%. It's pretty low, and that's on the profits. So the corporation can pay its corporate taxes, and the money can sit in the corporation and grow. And I can reinvest that money, because that's all I'm really doing right now. I'm just reinvesting the profits in the corporation. But this year, I'm going to be making more profit than I am investing. So it's going to end up being more profits than I want my personal taxes to have. So to save my personal taxes from being slammed with that, I'm separating that from my personal business, if that makes any sense to you. So I apologize if some of this is a little bit beyond everybody's comprehension. All you need to know is that separating your banking and separating the business from you helps you maintain your own personal tax rate. Now, if you don't have a job and you're doing this full time, it's actually not that big of a deal. You can still save a little bit of money in taxes by creating a corporation, but the real benefit comes when you're like me and you have a job as well and you're running a business on the side. Then the business can pay its taxes, and the taxes will not be coming out of your pocket, basically. It'll be coming out of the business pocket. So the last benefit to creating a corporation is probably the biggest benefit, and that is that someday you can sell. And typically, a typical selling price for an e-commerce business, that is any kind of online thing, and Amazon businesses are basically considered e-commerce or online businesses. The typical selling point would be about 20 to 25 times the monthly profit. And that is profit, not sales, of course. So if you calculate your monthly profit is about 25 to 30%, and you're doing about $10,000 in sales per month, so that's about $2,500 to $3,000 in profit. So multiply that by 20 or 25. Let me see here. I'm just going to do this actual calculation. 2,500 times 20. So that's about $50,000 that you would expect somebody would potentially pay for that business. So let's average this out for a year. So what would $1 million in sales get you? So $1 million in sales divided by 12 and multiplied by a profit margin of 30%, which is probably on the high end, but we'll just call it that. So $25,000 in monthly profit times 20, that'd get you about $500,000. So looks to me like the selling price of any business, if you're doing about 30% profit, is about half of what your current monthly sales is. Oh, your yearly sales, sorry. If you can tell, I'm not a huge math guru here. I absolutely need a calculator when I do these kinds of things. But that's a pretty good rule of thumb to go by. So half of your yearly sales, maybe a little less, maybe a little more. And it all depends on if the person is buying your business, they want to know that they can scale this up. So you need to leave room in there for scaling, and you need to build a team and a process that demonstrates to the buyer that, yes, you can easily scale this up. You can double your monthly profits. You can double your yearly sales, and it's a long-term thing. Nobody's going to buy a business if the business is going to be obsolete in 12 months. They're not going to get their money back out of it. These people that are buying businesses, they want to know that this business is going to operate for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And that usually gets them at least double their money back. And that's a pretty good profit margin for a $500,000 investment. So that is the benefit of a corporation and the benefit of building a brand. So getting a corporation in place is part of that brand building. It's not the only thing. So don't think to yourself, oh, I'll just get a corporation, separate the banking, and that'll be my business. No, there's a whole lot of behind-the-scenes processes. So the team and the process, and also developing a list of customers is part of that. I probably should have thrown that as part of step 3. And there's a way to do that, even if you're selling print on demand, building a list of customers, or an email list, if you will. And email lists are great for launching new products because you can just email your list and say, hey, I've got this new product. It's 30% off now. Come buy it. And it helps you launch new products and build up velocity without having to spend a lot of money on ads. And there's a whole bunch of other benefits too that I won't get into right now. But what I haven't talked about yet, and I'm not going to be able to get to this time around, is the difference between Canada and the US and Australia. So I'll just describe quickly how Canada works, because I'm fairly sure that there's quite a few Canadians listening to this podcast, and I know that some of you will be confused about, which kind of corporation could I create, or should I create, and should I register a business name or do this or that. So what I did is I went to a website called Owner, and it's spelled OWNR.co. And I'm pretty sure that this is also available in the US. And what I did is I just said, I want you to do all the behind the scenes work. You can do all of this yourself, and you can draft up all of the documents for incorporation, but honestly, it's such a pain to do that I just wanted someone else to do it. And I was willing to pay them a couple of $100 to have it done. So it cost me about $500 to register the corporation. I did incorporate provincially. And the reason that I incorporated provincially as opposed to federally is that it's cheaper to do provincially, and it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Having a provincial corporation is just as good as a federal corporation. I don't do a ton of sales in Canada, so there's really no reason for me to incorporate federally. I really don't know. I'm not a tax accountant, so I don't know all of the ins and outs of the differences, but from everything I've read, provincial incorporation is just fine. You can get business banking, you can get lending, no problem. It's not a big deal, and it's a little bit easier to do. So I feel like it's probably the same for the US, but I'm actually going to do a little bit of research on that, and I'll get back to you guys. I'll try to link to a few articles here on the next episode where I will talk more about brand building and incorporation and what kind of specific incorporation you should create and how you should structure it. So for my incorporation, I am the only shareholder, and I am also all of the board positions. So I'm the president, I'm the secretary, I'm everything. So, de facto, I am still it's like a sole proprietorship, but with legal status. But it is an important legal status. So it's a bit of a step beyond where I was before, but it's not where I'm going to be in years to come. So that's it for this time, guys. Hopefully that wasn't too confusing for you. As ever, if you have any questions, you can fire them off on the Facebook page. I will link to that in the show notes. And otherwise, have an awesome summer. Cheers.